Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 354 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about the teams in the National League to preview the upcoming baseball season. Last week, I talked about my feelings on the American League heading into the year. Now it's time to delve into the National League. The first division I want to talk about is the NL West. And man, is this division full of big spenders, starting with the Dodgers, who signed Japanese pitcher Roki Sasaki, two-time Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell, and two all-star relief pitchers Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates. The Dodgers are far and away the deepest team in baseball, and that's why they are the best team in baseball. Baseball is a sport about having a deep roster more than it is about having one signature star. This is a team that last year won the World Series without an elite pitching staff. Now they have Sasaki, Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Not to mention they will also have Shohei Ohtani and I presume Clayton Kershaw. My connection to this team is Mookie Betts, my favorite player in the game. It will be interesting to see if he plays shortstop for a full season, and of course I'm looking to see how much Ohtani actually pitches. Then you have the surprise of the offseason to me, the Arizona Diamondbacks, who ended up with star pitcher Corbin Burnes to go along with Zach Gallen. They have also traded for first baseman Josh Naylor. How far this team is going to go this year is going to come down to one player, Corbin Carroll, whose special rookie season led them all the way to a World Series appearance. The most perplexing team in all of baseball has to be the San Diego Padres, who want to spend and make trades for players like batting champ Luis Arraez and pitcher Dylan Cease, yet all offseason long they have both been in trade rumors, and so has pitcher Michael King, who was a big part of the Juan Soto trade. The San Francisco Giants spend a lot of money. They brought in power-hitting shortstop Willy Adames. I'm interested to see if his power translates to Oracle Park, and they also brought in one of my favorite players, pitcher Justin Verlander. And then you have the Colorado Rockies, and I'm just tired of them because of their ballpark. They can't even get average pitching on that team. Despite most of the other teams in the division having a lot of talent, you have to go with the Dodgers winning this division because they have won every year since 2013, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon. They hold dominance over the division because all of the good players seemingly want to play with the Dodgers. I mean, even the guys they bring back, you think that Teoscar Hernandez, who had a big year with the Dodgers, is going to get paid a boatload of money. No, he got a reasonable deal to come back to the Dodgers. They are a baseball team winning on all levels. And arguably the best three players in the division all play for the Dodgers: Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman. And yes, I find it really fascinating that the other teams are fighting back by spending money. What the Diamondbacks and Giants are doing is admirable, but are they really going to be able to compete with the Dodgers? More so during the regular season than even during the postseason, because the Dodgers are a team built for the regular season. They are so deep, they can go through long stretches of not having Mookie Betts, of not having Freddie Freeman, and still win a lot of ball games because of the massive assortment of talent they have throughout the roster. And then you make it to the playoffs, and one of their postseason heroes ended up being Kike Hernandez. That's what the Dodgers have, guys with so much playoff experience right now. That's the thing that doesn't get talked about enough. These guys have all played in the big games. The Zach Taylors of the world, the Max Muncies, the Kike Hernandezes. They're not the stars of the team, but they can show up big in the biggest moments. That gets us to the NL Central. And yes, the Brewers were great last year, but they lost Willy Adames and traded away star closer Devin Williams. I just have a feeling that they are going to revert back to being a normal baseball team. I think the Brewers are going to be very good next year, just not as good as they were the year before. This is something I was talking a little bit about last week on the podcast. It's so hard to talk about these teams that have success but then have to rebuild on the fly, like the Cleveland Guardians, like the Minnesota Twins, and now like the Milwaukee Brewers, because last year they won with a lot of talent. I mean, Devin Williams missed a lot of last season, but Willy Adames was a key cog in why the Brewers were one of the best teams in baseball, and that guy goes away, and I don't know how they're going to fill that void. They need power. I mean, that's what you think of when you think of the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that hits a lot of home runs. Well, they're a team that just lost their power-hitting shortstop. I get it. This is also a team that lost Josh Hader and then immediately replaced him with Devin Williams. They are used to doing that, so I may be wrong about the Brewers. I just don't feel great about them right now. The big market Chicago Cubs traded for Kyle Tucker, brought in closer Ryan Presley, and infielder Justin Turner. All three guys have been on winning teams. Yes, Kyle Tucker is the best player of those three, and I look at him as a future NL MVP type of guy. What I find interesting about the Cubs is clearly they view themselves in win now mode making these moves. I mean, there's all this talk, are they even going to keep Kyle Tucker long term? And I think that's all going to depend on how this year goes for them. If they win 95 plus games and he hits 30 home runs, I think they're going to keep Kyle Tucker. But if they are just a middling baseball team, a 500 team, I do not believe they will be willing to pay him the big money it would take to keep him there. I was down on the Cubs going into this offseason, and they have made enough moves to make me perk up my eyes and go, wow, this could be a very good baseball team. I also wasn't very big on the Cincinnati Reds until they brought in future Hall of Fame manager Terry Francona to be their manager. He's the right guy to manage a team that has untapped stars on it. They have Elly De La Cruz. They are going to be an interesting baseball team to watch. Now, I believe the Cincinnati Reds will be an above 500 team. I don't know how good they're going to be, but I believe in them because this is what Terry Francona does. He goes to these situations that kind of look dire. I mean, he went to Cleveland and he turned them around, and I believe he will do similar things with the Cincinnati Reds. He is motivated, and when one of these baseball lifer managers gets a new job, you can never count them out. They always have early success with their new team. One would think that the Pirates had all of the motivation in the world to add talent this offseason because they have Paul Skeens, who everyone believes is going to be the next big pitcher in baseball, that he's going to be a unanimous Cy Young Award winner, that he's going to be viewed as one of the greats. Well, you have that guy, but what you didn't do was add good ball players to your roster. I get it. You're going through the good times. You're bringing back Andrew McCutchen. That's fine. He's still a decent enough baseball player. But what about adding players during the offseason to make your roster better? Last week, I talked about how the Seattle Mariners have all of the pitching in the world. All they need to do is add offense. I feel the exact same way about the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, why weren't you guys in on Pete Alonso? That's an interesting name. Now, were the Pirates ever going to land Pete Alonso? Absolutely not. But why not make the effort to go see if you can get him? And finally, the Cardinals feel like the most lost franchise in all of baseball. They couldn't get a trade done to move Nolan Arenado, and they also still have Sonny Gray, and they've moved Wilson Contreras from the catcher's position. I have always viewed the St. Louis Cardinals as the most consistent franchise in all of baseball. I mean, they would never do anything that I would deem embarrassing, and now I find them to be fully chaotic and have no clear plan for this season and beyond. And I know they're bringing in Chaim Bloom to run things next season, and that's great. But as a fan of the Boston Red Sox, that might not be the best thing for the St. Louis Cardinals. Not to go off on a side tangent, but I just feel like Chaim Bloom is someone who makes the right baseball decisions, but then doesn't commit to it long term. Like, he was right on Hunter Renfroe. He was right on Michael Wacha. He was right on Kyle Schwarber when he was with the Red Sox, but he didn't bring any of those players back for another season with the Boston Red Sox. And to a certain extent, I understand that. When he was with the Tampa Bay Rays, they couldn't bring guys like that back, but the Red Sox had the money. The St. Louis Cardinals are going to have the money, and I'm going to be really interested to see if this time Chaim Bloom spends real money. All right, I don't feel great about this pick, but the team I have winning the NL Central is the Chicago Cubs. I just got a feeling that the Cubs are going to win. I believe in Craig Counsell as a manager, and more importantly, I believe in Kyle Tucker as a star player. Now that he has a chance to be the real best player on a baseball team, I think he's going to show the world that he is one of the best players in the game. The last division is the NL East, and it is stacked. You got the Mets, who landed Juan Soto to pair with Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso. The question there is the pitching staff good enough? I mean, is a team with World Series aspirations really going to rely on Frankie Montas and Clay Holmes to give them meaningful innings? And don't get me wrong, I think David Stearns is one of the best executives in all of baseball, but those are some risky moves he's making with the Mets. Bringing back Sean Manaea was a good move, but they're basically asking Kodai Senga to be a number one pitcher. The Philadelphia Phillies didn't land a star, but I like the moves they made, adding the left-handed starting pitcher Jesus Luzardo and outfielder Max Kepler. I mean, those are just decent baseball moves. I mean, that team is stacked with so many stars. They have Bryce Harper. They have Trey Turner. They didn't need to go and get Juan Soto. They just needed to get good baseball players to fill out their roster. A team that I get a sense that everyone is out on is the Atlanta Braves, and I find that to be weird. I mean, they've still got the Cy Young Award winner in Chris Sale. They're going to get Spencer Strider back. They have Ronald Acuna Jr. I know he's recovering from injury, but when that guy plays baseball, he's one of the best. Matt Olson is still one of the best slugging first basemen in the game, and I really do like the addition of Jurgensen Profar. So for the first three teams in this division that I've talked about, the Mets, Phillies, and Braves, I look at them as teams competing to make the playoffs. For the Washington Nationals, I look at them as a team that I now want to watch. They have good young talent. C.J. Abrams, an all-star shortstop who is only going to get better, and outfielder James Woods, who many think will become a star. They also brought in some proven bats in Josh Bell and Nathaniel Lowe. And finally, I really try to avoid talking about the Marlins as much as possible. I just think they're an embarrassment of a baseball team. It's tough right now to say who's going to win the NL East, but my pick is the Philadelphia Phillies. They are the most complete team. They have two of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Yes, Zach Wheeler is the obvious one. He was second in the Cy Young, but the other guy doesn't get enough credit, and that's Aaron Nola. I mean, he just quietly makes his 30 starts. He's going to win his 14 baseball games. He is consistent, and that is something that most starting pitchers nowadays are not. I mean, with guys like Blake Snell, they win the Cy Young Award one year, and then the next year they have an off year. No, you know what you are going to get out of Aaron Nola each and every season. I find it to be a travesty he's only been an all-star one time in his career, and it was all the way back in 2018. I mean, this is one of my favorite pitchers in the game, and for me, the most overlooked pitcher in the game. Aaron Nola has made at least 32 starts in every full season of baseball since 2019, not counting the pandemic, of course. He's an old school pitcher, and baseball needs way more of those kind of guys. So yeah, I've got the Phillies winning the division. I'm not down on the New York Mets. I just don't know what kind of season Juan Soto is going to have. Is he going to be the Juan Soto from San Diego, who is a very good baseball player, or is he going to be the Juan Soto with the Yankees, who was an all-time great baseball player? What's fascinating about Soto is there is now more pressure on him playing for the Mets than there was with the Yankees, because the Mets are viewing this guy as the savior, this guy as the missing piece to them winning a World Series title. I don't think a star baseball player has had this much pressure on him since Alex Rodriguez joined the New York Yankees. Let's get into who I think will take home some awards. For the NL Comeback Player of the Year, I'm going with Spencer Strider. I think this is the obvious choice. I believe he's a star pitcher. He's going to have a boatload of strikeouts if healthy, and he's the key to the Braves being a special team because they have Chris Sale. If they have a 1-2 punch of Chris Sale and Spencer Strider, they could really be a team that could compete for a World Series title. For the NL Cy Young Award, I'm going out on a limb here, and I think it's going to be Dodgers pitcher Tyler Glasnow. This is a guy who at times has shown how special he can be be on the mound, I think this is going to be the year where he prevails and becomes one of the best pitchers in baseball, that it's going to become so undeniable he's going to win the Cy Young Award. Maybe I'm just wishing for that because I want to see Tyler Glasnow have a full, healthy season, and I really do believe if he does, he will be a sure contender for a Cy Young Award. Also, just heading into this season, I feel like he's not being talked about enough because the Dodgers have Yamamoto, they have Sasaki, they have Ohtani. I mean, everyone's talking about those pitchers when I think the one who could end up being the best pitcher of them all throughout his entire career is Tyler Glasnow, who was dominant before he went down with an injury last season. I mean, he was the best pitcher on the Dodgers staff, and I think he's going to have his big breakout season, which will end up with him winning the NL Cy Young Award. The obvious candidate for MVP is Shohei Ohtani, but I'm not going with Shohei Ohtani. I'm going with Francisco Lindor. Even though Juan Soto is on the Mets, I still believe the best player on the New York Mets is star shortstop Francisco Lindor. I mean, he really emerged as the face of the organization during the second half of last year. I mean, he's the reason they made it all the way to the NLCS. He was having clutch at bat after clutch at bat. And I just can't imagine that this talent goes his entire career without winning an MVP award. The frustrating thing about talking about the National League in general is that it feels wide open. Like there are a lot of good teams in this league. I mean, the Padres are very good. The Braves are very good. The Phillies, I think, are the second best team in the National League right now. But all of the talk is about the Dodgers because we all feel like it's inevitable that they're the team that's going to be the repeat winners. And a lot of that has to do with all of the moves they made during the offseason. And really, instead of talking about the Dodgers and those other teams, all we're talking about is, are the Dodgers good for baseball? I mean, that seems to be the idea that so many people are obsessed with. Is it good for the sport when there's one dominant team? I think the Yankees were pretty popular in the 90s when they won those 4 World Series titles and when Derek Jeter emerged as one of the faces of the game. I do, however, think that the difference between those Yankees teams and this Dodgers one is that that Yankees team was mostly homegrown talent. I mean, they had Derek Jeter, they had Andy Pettitte, they had Bernie Williams, they had Jorge Posada. They developed those guys into stars. While the perceived feeling about the Dodgers is they just bought a good baseball team, which I don't entirely agree with. I believe the Dodgers are top-notch at almost everything they're doing. I mean, for years they were developing great young talent. I mean, when I was growing up, they had the Russell Martins, they had the Matt Kemps, they had the Cody Bellingers. Clayton Kershaw was a homegrown star. All of this anger about the Dodgers is all about jealousy. I mean, fans are jealous that their teams don't commit to putting together a great team the way that the Dodgers do. I mean, I feel it. I wish my team, the Boston Red Sox, would spend money the way that the Dodgers do, and they used to, and that's what's so maddening, is that in this era where there are not as many teams spending, you still have the Dodgers. So whenever a big player is available, the Dodgers are always in the running because it doesn't feel like the Yankees want to spend money like they used to, like the Red Sox want to spend money like they used to. And the scary thing about the Dodgers is their big off seasons are not about spending on just one big player. I mean, they went all in on a bunch of guys this offseason. I mean, the Mets offseason is all going to come down to, is Juan Soto great with the New York Mets? I mean, with the Dodgers, yes, you have the big name in Blake Snell, but you also brought in the Kirby Yateses and the Tanner Scotts. I mean, those are guys who are going to help out your team. It's not all about the one player. Last year, it was, okay, we're going to bring in Ohtani, but we're also going to bring in Teoscar Hernandez and Tyler Glasnow. Yes, the Dodgers have the unlimited resources, but they are using it better than any team ever has. I mean, when the Yankees were spending a lot of money, there were a lot of flops. When the Red Sox were spending a lot of money, there were tons of flops as well. The Dodgers are just on an unprecedented spending spree where they're not missing on anyone. All of them are hitting. And I think that trend will continue. I'll end on this note. I think the Dodgers are good for the game of baseball because I think it makes these other teams want to spend money. money. I don't think Buster Posey and the Giants would be spending money if they weren't competing with the Dodgers. The same with the Diamondbacks. These teams want to compete, and the one way that they can is for them to also spend money on big-time free agents. It's the same with the Padres. I mean, they are star chasers because of the Dodgers. They are just trying to compete. Now, will they end up really competing with them? Probably not, but I like the fact that they are making an effort when otherwise they would not. The Dodgers are making these other teams have good off seasons. So yeah, maybe the National League doesn't have the amount of parity you really wanted to because of the behemoth that is the LA Dodgers, but the other teams are better than what they were going to be because of the Dodgers. I don't think the Giants would bring in Willy Adames if not for the Dodgers. I personally have no ill will towards the Dodgers. I think they are about to become a dynasty. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.